Okay, subject of the chat this afternoon is going to be, would you believe, biscuits again? I did that little expose, tongue-in-cheek expose on the very fine yo-yo biscuit from South Australia and the orange cream that had one side of it turned around. And the part of the story that I completely forgot is the part that all of these damaged goods or goods not meeting certain qualities are opportunities for others and form an important part of various chains. And a guy sent me a text after he'd watched it, one of my 11 viewers, and said that he's an ex-pig farmer. He remembers picking up biscuit meal. It was an ingredient in weaner pig feed. So then I go back to my stock feed, commercial stock feed manufacturing days. I could get that hair that's annoying me. And we used a little bit of biscuit meal, but we had great difficulty getting hold of it. We're only a small new player in a very big game. And the big boys like Ridley and Riverina had that tied up as well as some of the big integrators. So we couldn't get a lot of that. And then you look at the byproducts that you do actually use, and even soybean meal is a byproduct. You crush soybean meal to the main product you're looking for is the oil. This high protein meal with great amino acid profile becomes a byproduct, becomes available. It's today worth quite a bit of money. Canola meal, you crush canola. The oil is your main product, but you're left with this 34% protein, 6% oil product, which again has value in stock feed. Similarly, the abattoir game, their byproducts become something like meat and bone meal, which runs 48-50% protein, maybe as low as 45. It's got a huge calcium phosphorus output, for want of a better word, but comes with some issues. Salmonella's often present, as salmonella's not something you want in your feed mill. Not that you won't have it, but there's a few salmonellas that send some folks a bit giddy at the knees. So your blood meals, the blood, so it's spun off and dried, which runs about 85% protein. And tallow is another one. And tallow is used in more than stock feed, although stock feed is one avenue that tallow goes down. You'll generally find tallow in your soaps and some of your beauty products. Maybe even toothpaste. I'm pretty sure it used to be in toothpaste. I'd have to go and check the ingredients. So lots of these byproducts have developed their own market, basically. This stuff's pretty hotly sought after. Another one we got involved with when I was in the commercial game was the pith of the sugarcane. This was really interesting and had some potential as a fibre product. But we probably would have needed to pellet it at Bundaberg or wherever the sugar mill was and bring it down. I think we were bringing 26 bulker bags down for about 2 tonne. Big bulker bags, not little ones. So the logistics were a problem. The stuff was that light. It was that light, it wouldn't turn corners, tore augers apart. Of course, I got the job of doing the research, seeing if it would work. And I do remember I couldn't get it to go through the pellet press when we understood it had a fibre value. So we thought we'd try and put it in a pellet at our end, make sure it could be done. And essentially anything can be done with the correct dye and width of dye, length of bore, those sorts of things. And we didn't have that, and I was still learning the pellet game at that time as well. So we set off to pellet some, and I've probably been running the pellet press for about 20 minutes. We're getting very little in the cooler. I shut it all down and went up to the press and opened the press. I had much longer hair in those days. Probably not quite as feral as it is now. As you know, I'm working very hard on the feral #1 look. Look out for it, I'll trademark it. It had filled all the boreholes and just kept going around and around and around. If you understand how a pellet press works, developing heat, but there was no ability for oxygen to get in. And I opened the door. I wouldn't call it an explosion, but we certainly had a very fast fire that burned a bit of my hair. The second time that pellet press nearly did me in, almost got scalped one day, but that's another story. Part of the problem with that project was that the guys running it were a couple of engineers, so they looked at the ingredient list of stock feed and decided that this is going to be worth the same as soybean meal, which was $500 a tonne. Soybean meal has a tremendous amino acid profile and has high protein. We're probably still running high and low at those days. I think getting up to about 48%, these days down around 42, 44. So there's no chance it could match that. It has zero protein, very difficult to transport. As I just found out, not easy to pellet, needed to do some more work on that. Only a fibre value, so essentially we're going to be looking at feedlot dairies. But we couldn't come to any terms. These guys had decided it was worth $500 a tonne. It's probably worth 10, unless we could pellet it on site, bring it in pellets, and other things to do that. Bagasse pellets from the sugarcane industry as well, so that they'll pellet it on site and bring it down. So that was one of the interesting projects I worked on. Another one that came to light just before I left, I did a tiny bit on it. And you hear the talk that we're all going to have to be eating insects and things like that. I came across a group of, I don't know if they're scientists or PhD students or what they're doing, but anyway, they're breeding these flies in a dump in Sydney. The flies eat the garbage, the flies die, lay eggs and die, however the cycle of the fly works. And we grind all that up and we've got an insect meal. So we actually got to the stage of getting a sample. I think these blokes are a bit intimidated by the fact that, well, we were using at the time 50 tonnes a day of soybean meal. Obviously we wouldn't have used 50 tonnes a day of this stuff because low protein, limited amino acid profile. But if you make a good enough product, you can be consistent in your manufacture, or there's going to be enough of it. Someone with big barks will back you. And the guy I worked for would have been that guy. And as time went on, I may have put that proposal up if it was going to be beneficial to the business. Who knows where that's gone? Hopefully someone's still working on it. But it's still not going to replace soybean meal at 44% protein, great amino acid profile, and quite a bit of it produced. So yeah, it's everything. There's byproducts across the park in reality. You know, years ago I had this great idea. We'd set up a pellet press in a plant and people could bring their lawn clippings around. We'd pellet that up and feed it to sheep and what have we during the drought. The concept's okay. You can get your grass clippings theoretically for free until you can't and they become worse than money. But consistency of supply. And the big daddy probably of all byproducts is mill run or mill mix, which is what's left after making flour. So the wheat's rolled, might be rolled, I don't know, 8 times through various fineness of grinds. And bits are taken off at each particular rolling process. And you get your flour over there, and there's possibly some bran, some pollard, and this mill run. Now, mill run is spectacular at the pellet press. Just keeps the dye clean if you've got plenty of mill run. And again, mill run was hard to get. I can remember the time when it wasn't hard to get, but once I realised value, you know, mill run's probably 14-15% protein, high fibre, great product all round. And you get a reasonable amount on a truck, but you need to develop a relationship with a flour mill, or you just stand in the cold for that. The other one I remember, would have been the mid-90s, well, probably the late 90s actually, I think, we were making pellets. Western Milling in Brisbane, there at Rocklea, rebuilt their flour mill. They put away many thousands of tonnes in a warehouse of various flours, and clearly they overshot what was required, and we ended up buying about 2,000 tonnes of this flour once they got their mill going and back online. All sorts, scone mix, donut mix, and they were pretty good eating, I can tell you. Weren't too bad pelleting stuff up at night, knocking over a bowl of scone mix. I really should be dead, but for some reason I'm not. So we used quite a lot of that, 2,000 tonne obviously. And the last one that comes to mind, which kind of flows on from the biscuits, we used to get about 6 tonnes a week of potato chips out of the Smith's factory in Brisbane. At least I think it was 6 tonnes a week. It's still going. I know the feed mill they're going to today. And they'd come up in bulk bags. Now, I'm not sure what their quality process was, but these things are beautiful, just like buying them in a shop. Well, I thought so anyway. Or we thought so. I wasn't the only one eating. And again, they were wonderful at the pellet press, mostly going into dairy feed, high energy. Even at 6 tonnes a week, if I'm right about that number, we still weren't getting enough. So they were really good, which brings me the memory of the story. We went through a time, and I think they were Tarzos in a little rectangular silver packet that you had to tear open. So of course you mix the feed, put that feed through a cleaner before it goes to the pellet press. Or if people are buying a meal, just to the outload bins. I reckon we filled 5 or 6 skips over a couple of months with these Tarzos unopened. Just came as part of the process of the reject chips. I don't know if they were too cooked, not cooked enough, too broken. Be interesting to follow that up and see why a chip is actually rejected. And look, there's all sorts of other things. You look at the cotton industry, you know, cotton seed is probably a byproduct of the fibre game, and then the cotton seed meal is a byproduct of getting the oil. Cotton hulls is a byproduct of that. Goes into generally beef feeds. It's another horror thing to transport. Grape skins, almond hulls, and you're talking things with limited nutritional value, but that'll have a fibre value or a fill value or something like that. It's all quite interesting to look at and examine. But yeah, all those thoughts came back from one guy contacting me about the biscuits. Had a phone call from another guy this morning, drives a truck, and he agrees with me. He's the second of my 11 viewers. He agrees with me on the orange cream. Loves them. In fact, he tries to put them a long way away from him while he's driving so he doesn't eat them while he's driving. He also says it's quite difficult to empty the red stuff from the barbecue shapes while he's driving the truck, which is probably not a good thing. And he ends up with it in his pockets and all down his front. It's a pretty specialised process. I do it over the sink and I open that silver packet inside up and use my tongue generously to ensure that none of that red spice goes to any waste. Anyway, it's enough of being a dickhead today. Check back another time when I decide to waffle on. Catch you on the flip side.